Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be with you today because we're celebrating something that is wonderful of this institution, which is our Campus Read. Each year we choose a book that is meaningful to many people, and it's an opportunity for us to discuss the problems and issues that arise from that book. This year we've chosen Hidden Figures. Many of you have seen the movie, wonderful movie. It's about young people, young African-American women who were not able to necessarily get a great education, but who were very bright and able and went on to make a real difference in the National Space Program. I know about this directly because John Glenn, the first American into space, was a great friend of mine, and he told me directly about the importance of these women in making certain that he went safely into space and returned. So what we're going to do today is we're going to ask a question, and I'm going to ask this in a way that hopefully you'll be able to think about it. In overcoming the challenges of racism and sexism, not to mention some math problems many of us could not even read, much less solve, the women of Hidden Figures demonstrate unbelievable perseverance. So how do you plan to persevere throughout college to reach your goals? What strengths do you have that help you get there? So please take a few minutes to think about that and discuss it with your group.
Hi, my name is Keith Jackson, and I'm in my first semester as the interim dean of the College of Creative Arts. I guess in a way, I'm a freshman again. For the last 10 years, I've been the director of School of Music at WVU. I'm a trombonist who's fortunately able to perform in a whole host of musical styles. Much like the stage crew in a big production, integral people can be hidden. The women in Hidden Figures were essential to the success of the space race, and yet unknown even in their own field. Now that they are no longer hidden, we see that these women had to create their own path and make exemplary role models for future generations. There's importance, power, and strength in seeing a role model that looks like me. What do you think it means for women of those of color to have role models like Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson? What role models do you have in your life, and how do they positively impact you?
Hi, my name is Lori Andrus, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Health Policy Management and Leadership in the School of Public Health. The book Hidden Figures by Margot Shetterly is a wonderful journey of 3 women who confronted discrimination and beat it. The book is an inspiring story with lessons for everyone who has ever been put down because of their social status. I'm going to use Hidden Figures in my fall ethics class because the story of the African-American heroine serves as an entry point to examine other questions that we are thinking about in the field of public health. Here are the questions that my class is going to consider as we think about the tools needed in a society to address discrimination, including the values, the role of government, civic society, and equitable systems and processes. These questions apply to any group that is marginalized based on social status. For example, immigrants, American Indians, low-income whites, or lesbian, gay, and transgendered populations. So the first question is, what happens to the well-being of large groups of people who experience discrimination over long periods of time? And how does that discrimination operate to shape groups for better or worse? The second question is, how does discrimination or marginalization get under the skin to produce poor population health? And the last question that my class is going to consider is, how does the public health and healthcare community contend with discrimination as a risk factor for poor health when it is not a virus or a bacteria or behavior like exercise, smoking, or your eating habits? I'm really excited to engage in the Campus Read and discuss these questions with my class. So here's your exercise for today. Incorporate examples from the present and the era that the book describes, and explain whether the struggles from that time period still exist in modern-day America. What would you say to someone that holds a view opposite of the view that you expressed?
Hi, I'm Troy Clemens, the 2017-2018 Mountaineer mascot for WVU. I found Hidden Figures to be a heartwarming depiction of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics majors to spread the message of hope and inclusion. It was amazing that these women were not afraid to stand out, even under the harshest of circumstances. I think it encourages audiences to not be afraid to make a change. We all have the ability to stand out and make a change, but you need motivation, courage, faith, and inspiration in yourself and others. I'd like you to answer these questions. How can you stand out this year? What themes from the book or movie did you find particularly motivating? And remember, let's go Mountaineers!
Hi, my name is Savannah Lusk. I'm a senior exercise physiology major from Colville, West Virginia. I have the pleasure of being an honors freshman seminar mentor, which means I'll be working closely with an entire class of freshman students this semester. I'm also a WVU Foundation Scholar, but most importantly, I'm a first-generation college student with West Virginia roots. I connect with the story of Hidden Figures because just like the people of West Virginia, these women were underestimated and underappreciated. However, they possessed the tenacity and courage to face that adversity head-on. That's truly the mountaineer spirit. So my question for you is, describe the ways in which you might also be considered a hidden figure. What unique talents do you possess that may not be fully appreciated by the world around you?